On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the UFC Atlanta main event pitting former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman against Joaquin Buckley. My name is James Lynch. If you never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, and then I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight at the end of the video. Let me know your prediction for this fight, not just a pick. I want to hear your actual prediction for this fight in the comments. We can have a fun discussion about this matchup. Really big one coming up on here on a pretty good fight night card that we got coming up on June 14th, and this is going to be taking place at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Like we usually do on this show, let's do a quick tale of the tape between these two. You got the former welterweight champion, the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman. He's got a 20-4 record. Joaquin Buckley, 21-6. 38 years old to 31, so big age gap there. 6 feet tall to 5'10", 76 apiece. So Usman going to be a little bit taller, but he's a lot older in this fight. And of course, we haven't seen Usman in quite some time. We'll talk about that layoff in this breakdown. But first, let's start with the former welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman, who is back in action, first time since October of 2023. I did mention this is a 5-round fight, so really exciting one for the division. Usman is 20-4, like I mentioned. He's got 9 knockouts, 1 submission, and 10 decisions. He's currently ranked number 5 in the welterweight division. I mentioned it there, 38 years old, 6 feet tall with a 76-inch reach. So he'll have a 2-inch height advantage in this fight. We know the accolades for Usman. I mentioned him being a former champion. He's also the Ultimate Fighter Season 21 winner. He's got Performance of the Night 4 times, and he's also got the record for latest knockout in a UFC title fight when he finished Colby Covington a couple years back. Usman did not have an amateur debut. He went straight to the pros in November of 2012. Made his UFC debut on the Ultimate Fighter 21 finale in 2015, so almost 10 years ago was when he made his UFC debut. That was against Hader Hassan, getting the second round finish there. Some notable wins throughout Usman's career, which, by the way, he's got a 14-3 record with 5 stoppages. Some notable wins include Leon Edwards, Sean Strickland, Damian Maia, Rafael Dos Anjos, Tyron Woodley, 2 wins over Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and Jorge Masvidal. These are all fighters that were ranked at one point. The only losses he has, you can see the 2 losses to Leon Edwards, and he's also got a loss against Khamzat Chimaev at middleweight. So going to be looking for his first win, believe it or not, since November of 2021 when he takes on Joaquin Buckley. I mentioned the layoff. It's going to be exactly 602 days since Kamaru Usman last fought. So that's the longest of his career. October of 2023, going to be fighting in June 14th, 2025. Usman's had a couple close fights. We should mention those because they are worth noting here. You can look at it here on MMA Decisions in terms of some of those fights. So the first one was the Colby Covington, the second fight. I know Covington claims he won the fight. I think most people would disagree with that. And if you look here at how people went on this one, everyone pretty much said Usman won that fight. That was back at UFC 268 in 2021. 3 media members scoring it a draw. Now, if we look at the Edwards fight, the rematch, which was a majority decision win for Usman, but if you actually look at the scores, it's a little bit closer than people, I think, remember. So you can see there, majority of people did have Edwards winning the fight, but a lot of people had it being a draw. So if you look at it there, 19 media members scored the fight for Leon Edwards, 11 scored it a draw, and only 2 scored it for Usman. So maybe that could have been a draw, which is interesting. We should also mention the other Leon Edwards fight that Usman famously lost, where he got knocked out in the fight. He was actually winning that fight. So if Usman would have held on that last round, he would have beat Leon Edwards. Just important context stuff, right? You look at the resume, you see 3 straight losses. There is some stuff a little bit deeper if you go there. And then the Kamaru Usman fight, which again, I thought Chimaev won that fight against Kamaru Usman, but I was interested to see that there were some people who did score it for Usman. 4 media members scored the fight for Kamaru Usman. Another 4 scored it a draw against Chimaev, and the majority scoring it for Chimaev. So if my math's correct here, 21 for Chimaev, 4 a draw, 4 for Usman. So just another kind of context thing. And remember, Usman took that on short notice up a weight class. Despite him losing, that was actually a very good performance from Kamaru Usman on the resume. Let's look at Usman's stats here. You can see significant strikes landed per minute, 4.36. His striking accuracy is at 52%. Striking defense is at 54%. Doesn't get hit that much. His takedown average, 2.82. His takedown accuracy is at 45%. And his takedown defense is at 89%. We'll see if he's able to get any takedowns in this fight against Joaquin Buckley. So that's everything you need to know about the former welterweight champion, Kamaru Usman. Let's look at his opponent, Numasa Joaquin Buckley, 21-6 record, like I mentioned there. He's currently ranked number 7 in the welterweight division. He's got a 21-6 record. He's got 15 knockouts and 6 decisions, if my math's correct there. Yeah, 15 knockouts, 6 decisions. He is 31 years old, 5'10" with a 76-inch reach, so he's 7 years younger than Kamaru Usman. That's pretty significant. He's got Performance of the Night 5 times against Impa Kasanane, Jordan Wright, Albert Duraev, Antonio Arroyo, and Stephen Thompson. Trains out of Murcielago MMA. Buckley made his amateur debut in September of 2013. So when Usman made his pro debut, Buckley made his amateur debut a year after, and then did not make his pro debut until September of 2014. He's fought in multiple weight classes. We'll talk about that in a sec. Made his UFC debut in August of 2020, so well after Usman did. I mean, about 5 years after Usman made his debut. Actually, it might have even been longer. Actually, no, it was. Let me actually just figure it out. That would be better. So yeah, Usman made his debut against Haderson in 2015. So Buckley makes his UFC debut 5 years after, but he was competing against some good opposition on the regional scene. That is something sort of worth noting here. And then Buckley is 12-4 in the UFC. He's got 8 stoppage wins. So notable wins for Buckley include Vicente Luque, Stephen Thompson, and Colby Covington. Some notable losses include Nasruddin Imavov, Chris Curtis, and Kevin Holland. Those were all at middleweight, which is interesting. And this will be his 16th fight at welterweight in his career. He's had 11 middleweight fights as well. Remember, started his UFC career at 185, so maybe that strength factor, we'll see if that plays a role. Of course, Usman last fought at middleweight too. Interesting kind of activity stat on this one. I mentioned the long layoff for Usman. So since making his UFC debut in August of 2020, Joaquin Buckley has fought 15 times. I'm dead serious. Like, go look it up. It's pretty incredible. Since his debut, he's fought 15 times. And granted, that's over a 5-year span, but 15 fights in 5 years, that's actually very impressive. So yeah, lots of activity there. On the flip side, Usman, who's been pretty active throughout his career, has only fought 5 times since 2020. So again, Buckley's been in there a lot more than Usman. Buckley hasn't had any major layoffs, no major injuries, and no fights that have been close. I mean, all the decisions wins that he has had were pretty decisive. Let's go look at his stats for on UFC stats here. You can see significant strikes landed per minute, 4.22, which is actually just slightly higher than Kamaru Usman, who's at 4.36. So actually, sorry. Usman's got the higher strike count, but keep in mind, Usman, I believe, has more fights than Buckley does too in the UFC, so that might be part of the reason. But either way, very impressive. 4.22. Striking accuracy is only at 37%. His striking defense is higher than Usman's, is at 59%. His takedown average is 1.78. Doesn't go for it very often. His takedown accuracy is at 45%, and his takedown defense is at 73%. Let's go have a look at the odds. We do have odds for this. Buckley almost a 3-1 favorite, just slightly over 2-1, so he's about minus 235 on the betting line. Kamaru Usman, the underdog, about plus 195 on some of the books here. And Tapology telling a bit of a different story. A lot of people on Buckley here. You look at it, 82%, and most picking him 76.9, I should say, picking him by knockout, just 23.1 picking him by decision, and then you only got 18% of people picking Usman, with 75.9 by decision and 22.8 by stoppage. All right, which way am I going on this fight? Well, it's a tough one. And I'll explain why in a second here, but to save you all the suspense here, I'm going to be going with Joaquin Buckley, but I think what might surprise some people is I'm not going by knockout. I'm actually going to go by decision. And look, I know the stats aren't in my favor here. 28% of Buckley's wins are by decision, but the big thing for me here is Usman's only been knocked out 1 time in his career, and that was against Leon Edwards, and that was I'm not going to call it a fluke. It was a very precise kick that he landed, but Usman's not a guy that gets finished very often. Right. And I think even before that, it was a submission loss he had like on the regional scene ages ago. Point I'm making is Usman is very durable, very tough to take out. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, I'll be completely honest, and I said this for months on my stream. I didn't think Usman was going to come back and fight. I thought once we didn't see him fight last year in 2024, I thought, look, he's probably good with his podcast. It's gone quite well with Henry Cejudo. I thought he's out of there. So I don't know what type of training he's had sort of leading into this. Obviously he's not going to take a fight if he's not ready to go, but I think in that time off, I don't know how much he's been training and how good that is. So it's another reason why I kind of favor Buckley here, not to mention Usman's age. It's one thing to have a layoff earlier in your career, but to have a layoff when you're now 38, that's very concerning in my opinion. It's not like a case of Volk where, Volk's been in the gym and he's doing all this stuff. I think with Usman, yeah, he's in the gym, but I do wonder with the podcast how much time that's taking up for him as well with doing that show. I mean, I guess he's just showing up, but still. I just wonder where the focus is that way. Another thing I think is worth noting is that Kamaru Usman didn't get finished by Khamzat Chimaev, who, is a very strong fighter. Now, granted, Chimaev's more of a submission guy than a knockout guy, although he does have knockout power. I think that's a badge of honor, the fact that Chimaev, of all people, couldn't finish him. Like, if you wanted to give me more of a finishing fighter, I think Chimaev's more the finisher than Buckley is, in my opinion. So, I think that's something to sort of keep in mind here. We got to mention the Colby Covington win. It could have been a knockout later, but it was a doctor stoppage, right? It wasn't a clean knockout. So outside of that, at welterweight, he finished Luque. Credit to him there. That was a good win. And he also finished Thompson. But, Ruziabov, he couldn't finish. Alex Morono, he couldn't finish. Andre Filia's got chin issues anyways, so we won't put too much into that. But we have seen him go the distance. So again, that's another reason why he's not just fighting some average guy. He's fighting a guy in Usman who's a former champion who I think is very durable. The other thing we got to look at here is some of the wins that Buckley's had. And I feel like, because I see people saying that Buckley's the best, welterweight in the division, that he could beat Jack. That might all be true. I think this fight's going to tell us a lot about Joaquin Buckley for the simple fact that I think Kamaru Usman's far better than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson and Colby Covington, which are his two best wins in the weight class. Now, Thompson, I thought, won the first round against Buckley. Second round was a different story. He came back and ended up winning the fight in the third round. But that's one thing to keep in mind, is that it wasn't like a total domination performance from Buckley. He did get the finish, but I think early on it wasn't, going so great. Now, Colby, he did dominate, but I don't know what Colby we're getting these days, if we're being honest. Like, the Colby that fought Usman is not the Colby that fought Buckley. I think, that Colby has not been training. He's been doing other things. He has barely fought. So that's one thing to sort of consider as well. And if you also look at, Covington, the fight previously, was that Leon Edwards fight. Leon hasn't exactly done too well since that fight either. So I have some questions here about Buckley. Again, he could be the real deal, and we'll see it in this fight. And I'm going to be, I will be proven right because I'm picking him here, but I do wonder, I think these wins are a little overinflated a little bit if you look at the opposition he's fought. So that's the reason I bring all this up, is not because I'm trying to discredit Buckley, but I think a lot of people are on the, oh yeah, he's going to knock him out side. I don't know. I think Usman, even at 38, I could see him holding up a little bit in this fight. So not a popular pick as far as the prediction, but I think it's a popular pick, and that is I'm taking Buckley by decision, and you better believe I'm going to get some good odds on that. So I think that's sort of the way I'm going to go here. My official pick is going to be Joaquin Buckley getting a decision over Kamaru Usman as opposed to a stoppage. And yes, I know it's a 5-round fight, but I still think Buckley will take this to the scorecard. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What is your prediction for this fight? And who here is picking Usman? I think most people are going with Buckley, but let me know in the comments which way you're leaning on this one. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching. This is Early Look, and I'll see you next time.